Today we're going to talk about riding the waves of life. I'll share with you that in 2015 I started what feels like a series of unfortunate events, which started with being robbed at gunpoint. And today what I'd like to share with you all is some of how that experience really shifted my life. And if that was not enough to be robbed by gunpoint, life showed no mercy in the events that followed for me. I lost a cousin at age 36. Shortly after, I was diagnosed with a life-debilitating disease. A few months after, my best friend passed away. I had a panic attack that I could have sworn was a heart attack that sent me to the ER. 2 years after, my dad unexpectedly passed away. And I'm going through the process of supporting my mom with cancer treatment. And so I've had my fair share of hardship and life challenges. And what I'd love to share with you all tonight is some of the things that I've learned along that journey that have allowed me to not just, go through life with all the waves that life brings, but really and truly learn what it means to ride those waves. And as I like to say, you can either sink or you can swim. You can ride or you can drown. The choice is ours, and what makes the difference is the surfboard that we choose to use. And so mindfulness for me has become that surfboard. Thank you so much for your comments from Tiffany and the rest of you. So I'm going to start with a question that you might think is a little strange, but let me ask you this. How many of you do your laundry using fabric softener? Moment of truth. Just be honest. Give it to me, Tiffany. And I see Daddy Eric is in the building. And hey there, Timmy Butterfly. Thank you for joining, girl. And Down to Earth Chick is here as well. Welcome to you. So most likely you use fabric softener to wash your laundry. May seem like a really strange question. Have you ever forgotten to do your laundry without fabric softener? And have you ever noticed the difference in the quality of the fabric when you forget to use fabric softener? This is a metaphor for me that really stands out in how I talk about what it means to live life from a mindful perspective. Welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for joining. Mindfulness to me is like fabric softener for life's hardship. And whether you're still trying to make sense of what this 2020 crazy year has brought you and the plot twists that just continue to unfold, I think one common truth that we can all agree on is that in some way or another, you've experienced some form of hardship. And it might not be to the extreme that I have shared, having been robbed at gunpoint, having been diagnosed with a debilitating disease, losing a best friend, losing a cousin to an unexpected heart attack, my dad, then my mom being diagnosed. Yours might not be as dramatic as the life that I have lived, but every single one of us endures some type of challenge. That's just a part of life. And what I'd like to offer for you today is an alternative. Right? Sink or swim, ride or drown. And what I'm hoping is that each of you can leave here tonight feeling equipped to surf through life's challenging waters. And so to me, there's one really important element to understanding that when life's challenges hit, it can feel like the odds are stacked against us. Would you agree with that? And here's why. And I want you to tell me if this is true for you or not. Keep it real. Welcome, Heather, again. So hard times can bring on really hard emotions. And these hard emotions can make managing the hard times even more difficult. In addition to that, our negativity bias, which is this tendency in our minds to look for the negative, right? It's like Teflon for good and Velcro for the bad stuff, right? Some stuff just seems to stick, and we tend to look for the negativity around us, and that becomes the lens through which we go through life. And that's really not a bad thing. Fast forward to prehistoric times when we were not as sophisticated and evolved as human beings as we are today, our brains were wired for survival. And this tendency that we have, this negativity bias, is our brain's way of scanning our environment for threat. It's part of our survival mechanism, right? But what this negativity bias causes is that we can tend to anticipate the worst. Do you agree with that? Do you notice how your mind can start to catastrophize and start to tell you stories that might feel quite real for you, but might not actually be true? I think it was Einstein that once said, I've been through some crazy stuff in my life, and some of them actually happened. The rest are simply stories that are made up in our minds. And so this combination of hard times can bring on really hard emotions, this negativity bias that can lead us to catastrophize and create more drama around the situation than the details and the facts actually warrant, can make dealing with difficulty really difficult. And so what I'd like to offer, right, are 5 key things to how we can learn to ride the waves of life. And I'll just say that, there's a program for each one of these 5 things. And so I'm not going to be able to go into all of them with too much detail. But what I'd like to give you today is just what those 5 things are, why they're important, and some practical takeaways that you can take with you. Sounds good? Give me a thumbs up if that sounds great for you. And so what I'd like to start with is honoring life. This is a practice of saying yes to life, saying yes to the surprises, to the beauty, to the lessons that life brings. Amor fati is a slogan that I have come to really love and live by, and it means an attitude of embracing what life brings our way and seeing every single experience, including suffering, including loss, as necessary facts of life. When we can approach life with this kind of attitude, we learn to experience the experience of life, the experience of hardship, the experience of suffering with a much softer tone, like fabric softener, right, for life's challenges. And to me, friends, that is so empowering. That puts us in a place of choice that the challenges will come, right? But how we choose to deal with them, the attitude that we bring to those experiences, can make all the difference in the world. I love that name, joy, uniqueness. Just as we are talking about bringing a certain attitude to our lives, joy, uniqueness has joined. So welcome, joy waves to you, my friend. And the key here is practicing acceptance. You might recall, if you were with us for our first session last week, where we started talking about embracing change and the fast pace of life. And we talked about the fact that the extent to which we resist our experience is a multiplier effect, which magnifies our experience of suffering. Greeting queens, yes. And so how that works, if we take the equation of suffering, my friends, is pain times resistance. It means that suffering is a part of life. It's a fact of life. The extent to which we suffer through that experience is dependent on how much we resist the experience. And so learning to say yes to life is a way that we can start to accept the nature of life. Now, I'm not suggesting that you become a doormat and allow life to just run over you. It's understanding, and we talked last week about the circle of control, understanding what is within my control. And anything that is within your control, you learn to accept, and what is not, you let it go. That can allow us to live life with much less resistance and therefore less suffering as part of the process. The second very important quality of learning to ride the waves of life and learning to deal with hardship, deal with the challenges that life will inevitably bring our way, is understanding that with hardships come hard emotions. And so being able to ride the waves of life and not be drowned by them means learning how to manage and truly master these emotions. Amen? And here's what we tend to do in a moment of truth, and just raise a hand if you tend to agree with this, is that we tend to try and suppress our negative emotions. As human beings, we want nothing more than to live with joy and ease and grace and happiness. We all want that. And so the minute that we experience a difficult or negative emotion, our tendency is to suppress that emotion. It's like holding down a beach ball underwater. You ever tried to do that? Eventually what happens? The beach ball pops up, hits you in the face. Or for any moms out there, parents that are with us, welcome, Ali, nice of you to join. That kid that's trying to get your attention, right? And until you acknowledge that child, they just keep nagging relentlessly. Our emotions have a way of acting like that child that wants our attention, right? And so we have to learn to identify, to name, to acknowledge our emotions, and then learn how to master them. As we talk about building mastery, the third element, and I hope you're tracking because our last giveaway for this evening is related to these 5 elements of learning how to ride the waves of life. So far, we've talked about fact number 1, which is honoring life, saying yes to life and approaching life with amor fati. The second is mastering our emotions. The third is mastering our mind. It's not falling prey to the stories that we tell ourselves, those false realities that we tell ourselves, the gremlins that exist in our minds, the ants, right? The ants that live in there, the negative thoughts that are constantly in there. Jan Van Zandt calls them the automatic negative thoughts that live in our minds, that are driven by our negativity bias. And so mastering our minds means taking charge, becoming the captain of our minds, and choosing the stories we choose to tell ourselves, the stories we choose to live by. And is grounded in the science that our thoughts drive our reality, that we have the power to create how we experience life through understanding and truly controlling and being able to manage the nature of our minds. And as I shared, I will not be able to go into each of these in grave detail, but shameless plug for my YouTube channel. You can find me at Sky Jarrett or Transcend LLC. I have larger, longer masterclasses on each of these topics, but I'm just giving you the highlights as we're really all of us trying to figure out what is this year 2020? What's up with these plot twists? And how are we going to navigate these times? And I'm empowering each of you to learn what it means to ride the waves so that you are not drowned, because Lord knows what else will be coming to us this year and even next year. Amen. So the fourth element in learning to ride the waves is building resilience. It's not just bouncing back from hard times. You know, we talk about resilience as bouncing back from difficulty. What I'm talking about here is building a kind of resilience, building systems of refuge, of true refuge that allow us to get through the hard times relentlessly, over and over and over again, with a sense of ease, with a sense of grace, and a sense of joy. Is experiencing the experience in a way that we choose, right? That, friends, is what resilience is about. It's about knowing that within each of us is an innate capacity to deal with what life is bringing our way. It's about surrounding ourselves with resources, which might include a few dear friends that we know we can count on to get us through the hard times. Twisted Mustard Seed has joined us. They are in the building. Welcome to you, my friend. We are live here at Sunday Reset talking about learning to ride the waves of life. In partnership with Cherry, who is really committed to helping its customers really cultivate inner beauty and going inward and building resilience in a way that we can learn to navigate life with more joy, more ease, more grace. The fifth factor in learning to ride the waves of life is self-compassion. Have you guys ever noticed how much easier it is to show love and care to a friend who is going through a hard time? And how much harder it is to show that same love to yourself? Amen. Moment of truth. Show me a hand if you agree with that. Cultivating self-compassion is about giving ourselves the same kind of love that we find it so much easier to give our friends. It's about becoming our own best friend. And so what I'm going to do with we have about 10 minutes left for our session today, and what I'm going to do is guide you through a practice that combines the gifts of mindfulness and the gifts of compassion and allows you in just a few minutes to see the power of these two practices combined. And so what I'm going to guide you through is a rain technique. And when you're ready, please go ahead, get yourself ready for the practice. And so just make any adjustments in your seat that will allow you to hold a posture with dignity, holding your back straight, perhaps firmly planting your feet on the ground. And if you're comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes as a signal to transitioning your focus and attention inward. Let's start this practice with a few deep breaths, perhaps taking the deepest breath you have all day. And see how slow and deep you can allow your breath to be. With each breath, allowing yourself to really deepen your quality of presence, surrendering to this moment. With each exhale, relaxing the body even more. The first phase of this practice, the R of recognize. Just taking a moment to recognize what is present for you right now. If you're relaxed enough, just taking a moment to notice the thoughts that are present. Notice the emotions that are present for you in this moment. Notice any bodily sensation that's quite obvious for you right now. And so checking in with the throat and seeing if there's any tightness in the throat. Perhaps placing a hand on the chest and seeing if there might be some tightness in the chest. You might notice the beating of your heart. Continuing to breathe deeply and sinking into this present moment even more. And checking in with the belly and seeing what might be present there. I want you to take a moment now to reflect on an area of difficulty in your life. A relationship where you might be having some tension. A part of your job that you're finding really challenging. The general state of life and the chaos that this year has brought. A health complication that you might be struggling with. Whatever it is for you, whatever you feel challenged by right now, go ahead and identify what that is. If you're having a hard time deciding, this is where trusting yourself comes in. Just trusting your innate wisdom to guide you to the thing that deserves your attention right now. What are you maybe not willing to face? And sit with that, continuing to breathe through the experience of whatever is coming up for you right now. May you find refuge in your breath. The power source that ignites our internal resilience. So continue as you reflect on this challenge to breathe through the experience. Continuing to deepen the breath. Exhaling like the sound of the ocean. We'll scan the body once more, checking in again with the thoughts around this challenge. The stories that we're telling ourselves. And I'd like to invite you to see if you can locate where in your body are you experiencing this challenge. So shifting your focus from your mind and scanning from the neck down, where in your body is there an obvious sensation that's screaming for your attention? Maybe placing a hand on that part of your body, letting it know that I see you. You might even say the words, I see you, like the child asking for your attention. Continuing to breathe and just noticing what it's like for you to sit with this. On your next breath, I'll invite you to investigate, asking yourself, what does this part of me need? And trusting once more that intrinsic wisdom within you to answer that question, what does this part of me need? Are there words of affirmation that you might find comforting? Is it reassurance that all will be well, that I am okay, that I will be okay? Take a moment now to whisper whatever it is at this part of you that is facing this challenge. What does it need to hear? The last few moments of this practice, I'll invite you to practice acts of self-compassion. And I'll invite you to experiment and find what feels good for you. Experimenting with different ways of offering yourself a sense of comfort, a sense of safety, and a sense of calm. And so you might experiment, if you haven't already, placing 2 hands on your chest, pressing into your chest as a way of reassuring yourself that I got you. And you might even say, I got you. You might practice giving yourself a hug and holding yourself as if you would a child, as if you would a friend, a family member, a loved one. Holding on to your shoulders, holding on to your elbows. You're safe. And you might consider just holding your hand. Again, as if holding the hand of a child. A reassurance that you're okay. Take a moment to really sink into the experience of what it's like to comfort yourself in these different ways. Experimenting with these resources that are always available to you in moments of difficulty. You might also imagine a loved one, someone for whom you know their love for you is unconditional. Never a question, they're always there. And imagine that person holding you in their embrace. We'll begin the process of ending our practice, taking a few deep breaths, allowing each breath to nourish your heart, nourish your soul. Take a moment now to reflect on what this experience has been like for you. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. Welcome back. It's wonderful to see so many of you still here. If you are just joining, this is our Sunday Reset IG Live. My name is Sky Jarrett, and I'm partnered with Cherry to share this Mini-Mindfulness Masterclass series. Today we are talking about the process of learning what it means to ride the waves of life. To ride, not sink or drown, but learning really how to surf through life's challenges. And the practice that we have just done, I have different versions of this on my YouTube channel. You can find me at Sky Jarrett or Transcend LLC. It integrates the practices of mindfulness and compassion, really activating the power of awareness and insight that mindfulness can offer. Being able to name our experience and tend to our experience. You know when you get that phone call from a friend, I need you, can you come by? Can you sit on the phone with me while I talk through this very difficult time? that listening air, that quiet, that stillness that you're able to give to your friend and to hear them out. This practice of mindfulness allows us to do that for ourselves, to hear ourselves out, to listen without judgment, with unconditional love and regard for ourselves in the way that we can so easily do for others and find so difficult to do for ourselves. Amen? And to meet that awareness with compassion. And so we practiced today different forms of really practicing self-compassion, loving ourselves. It's going back to that sort of biological need that we had as children. That need for comfort when that child cries at night, "Mommy, I need you." Biologically, we need to feel that embrace, and we can do that for ourselves. So if you are just joining, Tiffany says, "I needed this. I have been feeling so down, and wow, I'm in tears." Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing, and if this is too much for you to share publicly, do feel free to DM me separately at Transcend LLC. And I'm just curious, what's bringing you to tears? And what about this experience did that for you? Would love to hear more about that. This, my friends, is a powerful practice that we have available to us always. And so I encourage you, if you've just joined and you have missed out, to watch the replay that I have shared, the 5 factors in learning how to ride the waves of life. And now it's time for our final giveaway of the session. If you have been with us, you might recall the 5 elements of riding the waves of life. Who would like to share? I'll give you 3 of the 5, or at least if you can name 2 of the 5. What are 2 or 3 of the 5 factors to riding the waves of life? As folks are typing that in, I just want to acknowledge that this process, cultivating the practice of mindfulness and compassion, has allowed me to live through a series of very challenging, life-altering experiences with equanimity, with a sense of calm, a sense of composure, a sense of joy, a sense of ease that is available to every single one of us as we're trying to wrap our heads around what the F? Riding the waves of life. Cultivating a practice of mindfulness and compassion can allow you to do that as well. I see my friend Timmy Butterfly says, mastering the mind and mastering emotions. Amen. Those are 2 of the 5. And Tiffany Lishe says, I didn't know how to release my feelings. I haven't sat down and just taken the time for myself. And when you have kids, I have to be so strong for them. Forgot to be strong for myself. Congratulations, Tiffany. You had an opportunity today to be there for yourself in a way that you can always do for yourself, as you always do for your kids. It takes 30 seconds, 45 seconds. An act of touch, placing our hands in our heart, can have such a powerful way of reminding ourselves that, girl, I got you. I'm here for you. And so I'd like to thank you all for being here with me today. Thank you to Cherry for this partnership. Thank you for having me, and thank you for making these practices. These are life skills that Cherry is making available to each of you as you learn what it means to cultivate inner beauty, to cultivate inner resilience, learning what it means to ride the waves of life. We've got 2 winners today in our giveaway. We've got Timmy Butterfly, and I think Tiffany, you are the second winner. So go ahead and send us a DM. I have your name here, so you can let us know that you are the winners. 2 lucky winners of today's Sunday Reset IG live session. Thank you all for joining me. You can find me at Transcend LLC and check out my YouTube channel for more details on each and every one of the factors that I talked about today. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.